We're doing the MorraGambitExample3 here. This was an interesting game that was played because I chose to sacrifice a second pawn. And what's interesting about this game is that Black played a lot of the recommended moves that the computer recommends. Now it says that I'm just 2 points down, but Black does have an advantage. And now the standard way of playing this opening, traditionally, that I've seen, is that White puts his queen on c2, his queen's knight on c3, and castles long. I've never found that to be really the best order of moves or the best way to set this up. I just prefer straight castling kingside, as I see the engine does as well. I don't like my knight in the way of my queen's bishop either. It's pressuring the g7 square. Or it was. Now it says I should be moving e5 here, which I don't do. In this particular case, in this particular setup, I went for knight to c3. There was no more pressure on the g7 square. And that knight, where possible, and I've talked about this in the past, is headed to d5. We're looking for that at every opportunity. Now it says she should proceed with bishop to b7. He sets up a traditional Sicilian type situation. And now I'm following mostly book moves. It says he needs to get his queen where it's not in a pinning situation with the d pawn. Now he puts it on the wrong square, allowing me to set up an x-ray attack on it. Says he should be completing his development, and he completes it somewhat incorrectly. As we see very subtle differences here, if he'd moved bishop to d7 or bishop to e7, either one of those were superior moves. Now White is going to go ahead in this game by a full pawn by simply playing knight to d5. Now here we go with knight to d5. Now you're seeing that Black immediately, the computer will not take that knight. Now it can, and what's very funny is that it looks on face value like that knight is perfectly vulnerable, because pawn takes knight, pawn takes back check, queen goes to e7, and if queen goes to e7, now the white queen is uncovered. And even though the piece that we were intending to recover on c6 due to the pin is no longer pinned, and it covers the queen. So if we take the queen, the knight recaptures and Black remains a piece up. So in reality what happens is White has to be prepared to sacrifice his own queen, already a piece down. So he plays pawn takes knight on c6 and allows queen takes queen on e2. Then he proceeds with pawn takes bishop. Okay, now he has what amounts to a bishop for the queen. So he's 2 pieces down. Now, as we see, we have a pawn. We're doing this mentally now on b7, attacking a rook. That rook needs to go somewhere. The rook's going to go to b8 to prevent further mischief from that pawn. And now we're going to check on c8 with our rook, which is covered by the pawn on b7, and the king is going to move. Question, where? How? Well, we have lots of power sitting back here and lots of, various pieces and bishops and whatnot. If he moves king to d7, we got knight to e5 check. He's going to end up basically giving his queen back. We've got pins on the d file, on that pawn. It is open, the potential to come back and pin his queen back against his king was there all along. So if you move king to d7, knight to e5 check, basically forces him to resack his queen on e5. We get the queen back with the bishop, and we have an advantage, a significant advantage. So White, through a large degree of chicanery, emerges with a significant advantage no matter what. So I don't know whether this guy was using machine, but he moved queen back to d8 just like the machine wanted him to. And now I start to go a little bit astray here. The computer says I should be moving e5 right away, which I didn't really care for the look of that. As you can see, I moved knight to f4, and I'm attacking the e6 pawn. And interestingly, he wants the very kludgy move, queen to e7, to defend that. And the guy made the traditional move, and now he's lost, but for the wrong reason, because I don't make the right move. If I had simply pushed e5 here traditionally, correctly, that would have been a better move, followed probably by a sack on e6. So I take on e6, and what's wrong with that sack is that there's nothing that compels him to take it. So yeah, I want a pawn, but look how many pawns I was down already. So, and now he's just going to castle and come out just, I'm a pawn up. If he had just taken it and I took back with a knight, he would have been in a lot of trouble. Now it wants me to move e5 right away, which I was tempted to do. Instead, I made the quiet retreat, and as you can see, the computer is going to not like it as much. No longer one up, but more like a half up. Now you'll see throughout this process that I'm never down in this game. Now I get e5 in, and this is more on my own terms. And I have to take this knight because he's going to take my rook and attack my queen. So I have no time to take his knight. He needs to retreat to e8, which he does not do. He plays it to g4. Now simply h3 kicking this at this point seems in order, and I should have played it. Instead, what I did was I took and gave him pretty much an even game. So I'm blundering the advantage back now that I've gotten it. However, I still like my chances. He's got two bishops, but I've got two rooks staring down his throat. He's pretty much forced to take that pawn, but he doesn't. And when he doesn't do that, these are the fortunes. He didn't want to pin himself that decide games. And interestingly, the computers decided knight to d4 is a good move, and this is the move I took the longest out of the entire game, knight to d4. And I'm so happy that the computer says this works and wins. Look at that. So that knight is headed to a variety of places where it has a powerful effect, and most importantly, I'm discovering on his g4 knight, and he's got to do something about it. So he retreats it to h6. He could have gone to e5. And now I'm going to win also, but for the wrong reasons again, because I've got this huge fork on e6. If I simply plop one of my knights on e6 and then push that d pawn, he's in a world of hurt. So I do not do this. I attack his bishop, giving him chances again. But look, I'm still 1.5 up. So wrong move, but not too bad. Now it says he needs to take my knight, but he covers his bishop, and so he falters again. So this is a little bit of a comedy of errors. And it says I'm going to be up 4 if I simply use that e6 knight thing again, which I do not do again. Instead I attack his bishop. I have this strange idea that I'm going to mate him somewhere in a box he's creating for himself. However, my evaluation's coming back up somewhat. So he needs to take my knight, but he takes the pawn. And now my order of moves is a little bit suspect here, but I was low on time. So I should have just played knight takes check, and that probably would have sufficed, because I do have a bunch of discoveries involved. Specifically, I could probably move knight to c6 afterwards, discovering on his queen and then heading to e7, something like that, maybe just taking his rook. So I took on b5, and once again my evaluation goes way down. Well, I was winning handily, now I'm just barely winning, simply because he can sack his queen here. If he sacks his queen, then he's got some, the ability to live for a while. He moves queen to b6, And now, once again, the computer wants me to take that bishop with the bishop. I want to take it with the knight because I've got this nefarious plan about checkmating him. I like my bishops, and I like my bishop on the long diagonal. So that's the wrong way to take it, wouldn't you know, right? Now he takes back, and I move rook to c3. And so what was so bad about taking it? That's what I'd like to know. If rook to c3 has me up 3, how come I was only up 1 a second ago? Now he's going to play queen takes, and I blunder here. But my blunder's not horrific. It's a blunder because I'm up 13 if I play queen takes. And you see what's going to happen. Queen takes, he's down a whole queen. He doesn't have time to take it back because I check on g3 and then I checkmate him in 2 more moves. So I don't take, instead I just check. And my theory is, well, yeah, you can interpose his queen, but I'm still going to win. So here we go. He plays queen to g5 if necessary. And instead of being up, 13, I'm up 11. So yeah, it's a blunder. He moves in the corner, however, and I checkmate him. So there's a very little difference here, and this was yet another Mora gambit, and the player played a lot of book moves, a lot of computer moves, and did pretty well, I thought. And the knight to d5 trick worked as usual.